Let's dive into authenticating users. As I mentioned, I'll use Firebase since it's a ready-to-use backend because I don't want to focus on the backend logic. That is something for a Node, PHP, Ruby, or whatever backend language you're using course. On Firebase, we can simply get working authentication by going to the authentication area and then selecting a sign-in method. And I want to use the traditional method of storing email and password on our own server here on the Firebase servers. For that, I'll click on email password and I'll simply enable it by setting this switch to enabled and hitting save. Now users can sign in with their email and password. Now let's also go to the database, and there on the rules tab, I want to ensure that we only grant read access to users if we are authenticated. So on read, I will revert this to auth unequal to null. Auth is some object Firebase knows, which simply means is the user authenticated? It stores information about the authenticated user. And if this is null, then it means the user is not authenticated. So by checking if it's not null, we check if the user is authenticated. So let's simply publish it. And with that, we already should see one effect. If we go back to the application and reload this page on the dashboard, we actually get an unauthorized error here. And that's good. Now we'll fix this later. So important, we enabled authentication. Now we could authenticate through the Firebase SDK, but actually I want to show you an approach which is reusable with any backend, which is a RESTful API. And thankfully, Firebase also gives us some REST API endpoints we can use to create new users or sign existing users in. You can find these endpoints by simply searching for Firebase Auth REST API. Then it should be the first result, the reference, the documentation for this REST API. And there on the right, you see a couple of typical tasks like sign up with email and password. Then you see the REST API endpoint to which you have to send that request and the data which you should pass along. Now we'll of course do this together. We'll do this in the next lecture.